Good morning. It is day 3, strength training. All right. What day is it? I think it's like June 6th. Woohoo! Lucky number 6. It's a big. 6 is always a big number. I follow a lot of numerology, because it's a secret language, and if you understand numerology, then you know the value of 6 and what 6 in a month means. But every day is like representing something, and that's why we have calendars and numbers to identify things, because there's a lot of meaning behind that and behind numbers, and there's a lot of energy behind numbers too. So anyways, I wasn't really going to talk about numbers, but I guess what I want to talk about in my walk this morning is about boundaries and identifying what is the boundary, what is it to not have boundaries, what does that look like. It's been a hard one for me to process, because I kind of wasn't really taught this. I'm kind of raised like a foreigner. I lived in foreign places and bounced around all over. So really completely codependent on a family, on my family. They were my friends. They were my family. They were pretty much everything, because we were living in foreign places. So when you're a stranger to everyone, the only people that you can rely on is your family. And so that's what I had to do growing up, is relying on my family, and they relied on me to some extent, but I wasn't really good with the codependency and the living as a group and traveling. I was the one that didn't like it. I hated moving. I hated changing. I hated having to prove myself. I hated having to do all these things to fit in some weird country or some weird school or weird military people that were constantly criticizing and judging. So living military and foreign caused me to emotionally suppress and really just try to be what everyone wanted me to be, trying to meet their expectations, being that kid they wanted. And in this process, I lost assertiveness. I lost power of freedom of speech, freedom of right, freedom of to believe something different than what I was being taught or shown. And that was all disabled. I lost it. I lost all of that well before I was even cognitively able to even process what decisions were being made for me as a kid. Because when you're a kid, you don't get to decide where you live, where you go to school. You hope that your parents are thinking about those things and making those decisions for you and processing, would this be good for our kids? Not everyone does that. My parents were young and they wanted to see things. They wanted to get out. They were that young, vibrant couple that wanted to get away from what they experienced in their childhood. So they were young parents learning as they go. But when you learn as you go, you don't always teach the right things, because you're learning. So you're not teaching, you're learning, and they're learning from what you're learning. So I didn't get to learn about family values in the way that I agree with, or really understanding what is a boundary, and recognizing family entitlement and being able to distinguish what that is, and impressions, and having to learn how to separate me, myself, from what that is, from what everyone else is trying to tell me is right or wrong or this or that. Like, I had to learn all of that, and I had to learn that by processing many different experiences and many different cultures, having to process what each culture brought to my thought process and my psyche. So I've been shredding a lot of stuff from my head because it didn't match me, because I wasn't taught how to identify things and how to separate myself from others, and really creating that separation with boundaries by, hey, I feel like this and this is what works for me, and that may work for you, but I'm not there. And I never had the ability to speak, just to even say, hey, I don't agree with that, or I was afraid. I was afraid to say anything to anyone. And if I did, I would get backlash. And I wouldn't know how to deal with the backlash. That was confrontation. So then I would go into a freeze panic mode. And then I would just, more than anything, I would just go with the flow. I would just do whatever people in my life wanted me to do. Even if I didn't agree with it, I would just do it, because it was just easier to go with the flow than it was to create a boundary, because that means I would have to be assertive. And for someone with a PTSD freeze mechanism, that doesn't happen. So I became pretty much an open door. And that open door caused a lot of grief, trauma. I was running. I built up all these defense mechanisms. And so I've really been processing boundaries, processing my relationships, interpersonal, perspective of how I treat and respond with people and my relationships with them. Like even how I work with coworkers, how I work with my own family, and talking with my family, and knowing our positions and our roles, and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, and really learning how to identify and share, this is how I feel and this is what I need for me in my life. And I'm really coming to the place where, wow, this is super important. I really need to know these things, and I really need to apply them effectively in my life. Because if I don't, then I'm taking risk. I'm taking chances, and I'm the one that's going to reap the repercussions. Either way, whether positive or negative, I get the repercussions. So it's important that I process and I learn to identify myself in my life actively, and really letting people know where I'm at, what I'm doing, what I want, what I need, and then also learning to eliminate what I don't want, what I don't need. And if I realize that when I have problems, it's not because people are fucking with me. It's because I'm not sharing who I am, how I want to be seen, and how I want to be treated. So when I don't share those things, people don't know. And then people do what they do, the way they think, the way they are. And so I have this choice whether I can be responsive, just respond off how people respond to me, or I can process, share, engage, teach in my engagement with my word choice and how I want to really present and share. When you have this preconceived of what your intention is, you can really hold back hostility, defensiveness. And so I'm really practicing that. How to not be hostile, how to be open with people and sharing with a different language that's not triggering, that's not defensive, but enlightening to me, to them, to us. I feel like this is more supportive in learning interpersonal relationships and how we conduct ourselves, how we really start to not segregate by characteristics, which I feel a lot of us do. We separate in our groups because they're like me, so I'm going to hang out with these people. Instead, challenging yourself by going outside your norm, outside of the type of people that you normally engage with, going outside, engaging in different belief systems, different ideologies, allows you to grow, challenge your own thought process, challenge your own perspective, because you're not always right. You think it's right, we think it's right, but we only know what we know. And so we have to learn to put ourselves out in these positions to where we are engaging, where we are processing and sharing and collaborating, but we're not triggering and we're not fighting and creating these defense mechanisms within each other, because that just totally shuts us down and makes us want to do totally the opposite, which is fight and be hostile and all those things that we don't really actually want. So processing my angry Latina is what they call it, because I'm Latina, so I'm supposed to be this red fire, hot-blooded Hispanic, which I'm not. Can I be angry? Can I be hostile? Can I be all these things? Absolutely. Do I want to be? 100% not. 100% not. I am not like that. I don't like it. I don't like fighting. I hated it when I was in school. I don't want it in my adult life. But I feel like people don't know how to really interact. They don't know how to engage in different perspectives and different viewpoints, to where just because someone's sharing a viewpoint doesn't mean you have to adopt it. It just means it's just something someone said and you get to process it. That's it. Or not. But it doesn't actually mean someone said this, so now you have to combat with, is this your truth or not? And then what you're really combating is their truth, which is not even your place. It's none of our places to tell someone what is right or wrong, because everyone is going through their own way of finding out what is right or wrong. So our job is to just, cool, you're doing the work. You're trying to figure it out. You're asking, this is what I think, but that's it. It should really just stop there. It shouldn't be like, this is what I think and why, and you should think this too. That's the part we all get into. I've gotten into it too, all the time. I'm having to learn, like, fuck, this is, I think one way, but I'm so diverse, and I'm very eclectic in my thinking and thought process. So it's very challenging and it's very different, than a lot of other people's thinking. And that's totally cool. Like, and I don't care that I'm different and that I think things differently, because I know I'm different. I know I lived a different, weird, odd, unique life than most people. I don't care. I think the biggest challenge that I've had is that others care about what I say and how I project and how I share, because they find that offensive, because it challenges their mold of life, their mold of what they believe to be true. And that's just closed-minded people when you start talking to them, right? They get really offensive. They don't want to hear about your thoughts, your way, because it's wrong, because theirs is right. Wrong person to talk to. And I learned that when I get those people, back away slowly, back away, and just recognize that this person is still, they're not on your level. They're not on your level, so it's going to be an argument. And to try to get them on your level would be just a waste of time and just burning yourself. So kind of learning to be the healer for those that want to help themselves. Learning my boundaries on that. What it means to do my work and to support people in the way I do. So I'm learning my boundaries on that. Learning my boundaries just in relationships. Like, I'm not dating or anything like that, because I really don't know safety and who is safe, who's a safe person. So really the only safe people I identify with right now are my medical practitioners. If you're a medical practitioner, you're my doctor, you're my safe team. You're the ones that I can come to, ask about anything. I don't have to worry about anything because I know that we're all obliged by a code of conduct. So I really utilize that to my advantage. They're my friends, technically. I have to make an appointment to see them, and they take care of me and the needs that I have right now. God, my BFF right now would probably be my trauma therapist because I talk to her every week and I share all my shit with her. But you know, that's her job. She actually likes to do that. And when I schedule it, and it's kind of like we go through this process and then we cut away from it and I do my work, and it's just kind of really having people on my back, like, to support me, but I'm not codependent on them. I'm using them to really just support my goals, my initiatives, what I need. They're there to help guide me, but I'm really leading in my own treatment. I'm leading in my own work because I know it leads with me. They're just my team. So my medical doctors are my teams. They're the people, my safe team. And then my coworkers are probably the closest thing I have as friends. And they're safe friends too, because we're all obliged by a code of conduct. We're coworkers. We have an environment that we all share. So we have to coexist. And so that means that we have rules. And we have to engage ourselves in a certain way because we're coworkers. So because of these boundaries, it makes it really great because I get to practice friendship with safety and safe people and open communication. And I really am sharing with them because I want them to know me, the human, and they're around me. So it's important that people know me and that I feel safe around them. And I share these things with them because I have major PTSD, and if I didn't share it, I probably would self-sabotage it and leave. But that's not what I'm working on. I'm working on being a part of a team, being a part of a group, having these relationships, and maintaining boundaries in the relationship. So working is fantastic. Working with people is fantastic. It's just such a great tool that I'm using to build my skill set, my strengths in my mind, in my voice, in my action, in intent. And all these things really evolve me into growing and becoming a stronger human internally and externally. So boundaries is it. Boundaries is key, because boundaries means I pave the way for me. I pave the road that works best, and I put blocks where I need to, because you don't want attacks. You don't want things taking you away from your goals. So we place these boundaries. It's kind of like just a block on that pathway, like, it will, just like every river needs a dam because it can ruin a whole city if it floods. So, just like things like that safety precautionaries that we make, it's not because we're mean or bad or horrible. It just means that we love ourselves enough to do something to protect us, to support our goals, our initiatives, and really what we want in life. And that's the goal. That's the goal for all of us. That's the goal that we're trying to teach our children. And really, a goal is just a wish until you actively apply it in real life. So anyhow, this is day 3. I'm about to combat some stairs here, so I just want to end this with, boundaries and assertiveness is hard and very challenging and intimidating because we have to really stand up for ourselves. But just like anything, you can tackle it. It's just practice. It's a skill like anything. And the more you practice with yourself. Practice like I practice in the mirror. all the time to help me build that encouragement. So whatever you got to do, just try it. Just practice. Just have a little self-talk, little shower talk, whatever you got to do. And, just start practicing boundaries and applying those to your real world. And you'll see how things start to evolve and start to really flourish and change for you and become more in a positive note than grief and anger stricken as it can be. So anyhow, it's a gorgeous day and I wish you all well. Have a good one.